So, yeah, this year sucked. But to be fair, it's pretty hard to remember a year that didn't, at least in one way or another. Anyone who knows me IRL would tell you I'm generally anti-nostalgia. But is it really nostalgic to look back to a time when things didn't feel like they were falling apart? Or is that simply a brain trying to return to a previously saved restore point? These days I'm not nostalgic for movies I used to watch, or music I used to listen to, or games I used to play. Most of them are still accessible at the click of a button. I'm thinking back to the days when I used to care about stuff. In case you hadn't picked up on it, this is my end of year video, where I take some wild speculative shots at what might be coming up in my preferred subject matter for the next 12 months. I'm trying to keep this channel a mostly positive space, insofar as that's possible, all things considered, but fair warning, this is probably going to be a bit of a downer. Depending on how I feel when it comes to editing, either I'll put a ton of effort into finding appropriate matching clips for this one, or I'll just throw up some Halo gameplay. The apocalypse has been cancelled, presumably for making transphobic tweets, but like so many cancellations, it still appears to have a lot of very vocal support. The threat of Christmas lockdowns in Europe have highlighted the impact COVID will carry into 2022. CEOs of various tech corporations have already indicated that they don't expect supply to improve in the next few months, and even if it does, demand is going to remain high. Ethereum has been promising to move away from proof of work for several years already, with no real signs of them actually doing that. For as long as Ethereum can be mined on consumer graphics cards, demand for them from miners and gamers alike is going to remain high. Even then, if Ethereum suddenly became unprofitable for miners, it's not the only crypto game in town. And I don't imagine people who built mining rigs in the last 12 months are going to be too quick to throw in the towel before they've made their money back. This means, naturally, that the Scalper Pandemic of new graphics cards being bought to sell on for a profit probably isn't going to end in 2022. That doesn't mean that new cards aren't going to come out, however, and it also doesn't mean that you have no hope of picking up an upgrade next year. In recent weeks and months, the rumour mill has been prophesying the coming of the entry-level Radeons. As I write this, the RX 6400 and 6500 XT are still pure speculation, and the speculation that exists is pretty grim. The data on Tech PowerUp, based on forum posts, and as such should be taken with a pinch of salt, indicates the 6400 will be extremely entry-level, on par with the GTX 1050 Ti. That card was released at $139 over 5 years ago. So, if this performance rumour is accurate, I'd want this card to cost $100 or less. It will not. Disappointingly, Tech PowerUp speculation also suggests the card will require a supplemental 6-pin power connector. This had better be wrong, because about the only hope this card has for an enthusiastic reception is if it can be shoved into an Optiplex. The 6500 XT is rumoured to be essentially a complete rehash of the 5500 XT, and AMD wouldn't do that, would they? Well, pessimism aside, a card with Polaris performance for 2016 Polaris prices would actually be pretty welcome in this stagnant market, especially with 8 gigs of VRAM. However, even trying to put an optimistic spin on things, I'm not sure why AMD would even bother trying to implement RT on this card, at least not if the RX 6600 is anything to go by. Beyond that, I have a nagging suspicion that the high end of RDNA 2 isn't going to see much in the way of revision this year. There are rumours surfacing around RDNA 3, specifically the RX 7900 XT, but I honestly do not care about £1,500 graphics cards right now, and I don't think you should either. I believe it's safe to assume that the consumer RDNA 3 cards, like a hypothetical 7700 XT or 7800, won't be a thing in 2022. Recent activity from Team Green has indicated they are looking to revive some of their past architectures to help them through the various shortages, and I've speculated that AMD might benefit from doing the same thing. I asked my community and the consensus seemed to be that a Vega return would be most welcome, given that that tech is still being used in integrated graphics, under another name. It seems like the most natural choice for a low-end reboot. Maybe a new model with fewer CUs and more conventional memory could be a cheap and easy way for AMD to satisfy the corner of the market they once dominated. Speaking of past masters, Nvidia spent the end of 2021 quietly shoving RTX 2060 12GB out the door and suggesting the imminent release of the curiously Ampere-based RTX 2050 mobile in early 2022. I'm not about to suggest this is a bad move, as everyone knows every moderately performant graphics card that comes out right now is gonna get snapped up, but if it were really a good move, I feel like they'd make more of a song and dance about them. I expect it to be a quiet year for new products from Team Green, all in all. Like AMD, I think they will be basking in their increased share value from a beach in the Caribbean somewhere. The 4000 series isn't due until 2023, though I guess I wouldn't put it past them to shart out a 30 Super series. Trying to squeeze more money out of Ampere right now might seem like a complete failure to read the room to most reasonable people, but that's why most people aren't tech visionaries. High-end 30 Supers would do nothing to help used prices, but if they launch at the same prices as the original 30 series models, they might at least offer a glimmer of hope to consumers. Of course, they won't. They'll be hiked, especially by the AIBs, and they'll be snapped up and scalped, like they always are. While there's less incentive for Nvidia to launch new mainstream $150 to $250 products than there is for AMD, there are of course the long-standing rumours of forthcoming entry-level RTX cards, in the form of the RTX 3050 and 3050 Ti. I'm uncertain about these. My audience is overwhelmingly in favour of them, mainly for DLSS, and I certainly see their point on that note, but I'm not sure if there ever was a point in having ray tracing on a low-end GPU. I'm going to make my point a little more clearly in a full video in the next few weeks, whereby I'll be testing an RTX 2060 Max-Q, one of the lowest performing RTX-enabled GPUs to date, at the stuff it's supposed to be good for. Keep an eye out for that in late January. I don't know what to say here. We've seen Intel GPUs. They're a joke. That one card Gamers Nexus got hold of? It's a joke. The iGPU in the 12 series CPUs? It's an absolute joke. Rumour has it this year they're releasing full-fat gaming-grade GPUs for your PCI Express slots, but so what? You really think their first generation of discrete GPUs is going to be good? You think they're going to be cheap? Okay, let's say for a second we take this seriously. My prediction, and remember this is based on nothing but a healthy dose of cynicism and the couple of whiskies I drank before I wrote the script, is that the Intel GPU launch won't make much of a difference to the Scalper Pandemic situation, and that early adopters will be in for a rough time. I predict that this first stab at the GPU market for Intel will find its way into data centers, OEMs, maybe some system integrators. If you can actually buy an Intel manufactured GPU from a store in 2022, I suspect it will be from board partners, and after the way Nvidia has moved to protect their branding in the past by preventing partners from using Nvidia adjacent branding on AMD based cards, I suspect Intel cards will receive their own unique marks. This means no Intel Strix, Aorus or Supreme. Presumably the marketing teams at the AIBs are already consulting their teenage focus groups to see what made-up words sound most gamery. Not that it matters, people will doubtless snap up these cards as soon as they hit the shelves, but I feel like the chances of Intel's drivers hitting the ground running are pretty slim. It's going to take a lot of optimization to get their GPUs to play nicely with all of the hundreds of popular games they'll need to work with just to satisfy the majority of their audience. Even if Intel cards can match performance with AMD and Nvidia GPUs in the same price bracket, and that's a monumentally big if, I'm pretty certain that won't be the case in all games. Something that did occur to me is that Intel will probably make a big show of VR functionality. As one of the classic big tech corpos, they won't want to give their investors the impression they're ignoring the whole Facebook, PlayStation Home thing. I don't exactly know what this means in practicality. Maybe Intel branded headsets, maybe a proprietary connector, or a new Wi-Fi VR display standard, like an update to the old WiDi system. Whatever it means, it probably won't affect gamers much. At least, unless your employers are really into Zoom meetings. And, well, I guess I should say something about CPUs. I'm like 90% sure the next AMD chips will beat out the Intel 12 series, and I think Intel will probably do a rebrand to prevent having to release an unlucky 13 series, but whatever, will probably meet or exceed the new AMD chips, and on and on and on and on, until the sea levels rise and Silicon Valley gets flooded. And here we go, down the dark path again. Hope this hasn't been too painful a video to watch. Wishing you all good health and fortune for the holiday period and the new year. I've got one more GPU duel scheduled for this Friday, and then in January I'll be returning to one upload per week for a while. Thanks for watching, kindly do the usual YouTube things if you feel so inclined, and I'll see you next time.